All right. Hi, everybody. Nephew's SIG Automation Package Management Subproject meeting, May 16th. Okay, so we are 1 week away from code complete, and I'm a little worried. Looking at the I mean, I guess maybe this is a better thing to talk about in tomorrow's meeting, which I am unfortunately not able to attend. But across the rest of the SIG, I'm curious how we're doing. But how do I share? Sorry. Okay.
So just to give you, based on my understanding, John, I think obviously the package specialization is in a very good place.
Okay, good.
And then we are just out of the workload subgroup meeting. I think there are in flight. The few things are in flight. AMF and SMF.
Okay.
I think, but they're making good progress. The expectation is that we'll be able to complete by the end of this sprint. That's at least the goal.
Okay.
The one thing that may split into the next sprint is that upgrade scenarios where they had to, like when the config map changes, that particular part, how they make the parts aware. That part may spill, but overall,
okay.
my understanding is they're doing good progress there.
So, okay, then we're in better shape than I thought. Like because the main upstream things are done. This, I'm hoping, will merge in the next day or two. I poked Morton and Tasha to give it a final approval, but I think it's ready. So yeah. The thing that I guess maybe makes me most concerned is I'm still not seeing our end-to-end test bed. I missed the SIG release meeting yesterday, so I don't know if all of you were there and have an update on, like, do we have, or if Vish is here, like, do we have a end-to-end test? Vish was saying last week, I think, just getting the base system up and running was the target. Do we have any update on that?
Yeah, my understanding is Vish is working on that this week.
Okay. So maybe it's maybe I'm being pessimistic. All right.
But there's one more thing, John, that the whole status aggregator thing, the different parts to it, the NF topology works with it. Status aggregator on the management server and also edge watcher and the so that's something Tal was saying. They're making a lot of progress on it, but it's still a lot of moving pieces. That's one thing he was mentioning.
Okay. Yeah. I don't see Steven on the call, and he had said he was going to get me a PR yesterday. I don't think I saw it. So we have to follow up with that on the topology piece. But we can ship without the topology controller, right? So that to me is a nice to have. The status aggregator, I think, is different. That I would like to see. So I probably should sync up with them and find out what's going on. But then in this sub project, so I think that I see Sandeep from Samsung. I don't see Ganesh. So we'll go through the board. I think there's a few UI pieces, and I think there's a PR out for that. Let's go through the board. I think we're actually, most of the activity right now is in our stretch goal, which is the cluster provisioning. So maybe we're in better shape than I feared. So before I jump into the board, is there anything anybody wants to raise before we go through the board?
I wanted to talk a little bit about the cluster management. We can take that after we go through the boards, John.
Okay, yeah, let's plan on, I can stay till 10. I don't know how late you can stay. So I can stay the extra half hour, then it's booked for. I kind of keep that set aside. So
I can as well. So
okay. Cool. All right, then let's get through here what we have. Sandeep Sharma.
Yeah, hi. So I forked the Nephew project and created the directory structure as per the discussion in the ticket. But I'm facing a build issue. It's a cyclic import issue that when I tried to build the main.go, I was testing the Docker file. So I'll have to make some changes to fix that. And then I also saw a comment from Wim just now. So I think Wim, you are suggesting some framework change for adding the controllers. So
yeah, so for me, it's a bit urgent to do this, if I'm honest. So I created something for myself, and I just put a PR in place just to you can have a look. But it's basically aligned with so from what you did, I just extended it to with the comments that I made, where you have the ability from an operator. I put the comment in the PR at the back. So where you have the ability to register and stuff like that. So I created a framework that I'm using myself right now. So that PR 197.
Where is the PR? Sandeep, did you, is there a PR with your items? Or is it
I don't think so.
Okay.
I have to split it in two, by the way, because of the build issues. So there is some, because we have split in Go mod, but I created an interface. So maybe I try to explain in the PR what is how it works. So there is an interface, a reconciler interface, and then there is so the controller should use that if possible. So I'm happy to change the controllers to align with it because it makes it easier to interface. And then so there's a way to register, and then with true environment variables, you're able to say whether you want to start them up or not and stuff like that. So it's along the same principle. I'll just optimize some of the things that were there that I made a comment upon.
So what
but
should
let's
I
compare.
do now?
But it's up to you. I mean, I just submitted this because I said, okay, I didn't see anything yet. So I said, okay, we can stretch this. I have no problem to stretch this. But I think we should get this going ASAP because if the controllers adhere to this framework, I had to do a slight modifications to do something like this. It will ease the integration.
Okay, so so even I made slight modifications to the specializers in order to accommodate it. Yeah, I'm facing similar issue, which is related to the go.mod, the way, and it is in specializer, the way packages are getting imported. I mean, it only gets reported when I build it. So I figured out the changes. I mean, that will
so the problem is you cannot do them simultaneously. You have to do one Go mod at a time. That's the problem.
Yeah. So I'll continue.
I mean,
and I'll raise the PR, and then we can compare.
Yeah, that's fine.
Whatever improvement that you have, I'll incorporate that.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
But overall, I mean, the way you described, that is how even I did it. I mean, it's an interface which every controller will implement. Okay.
Yeah. That's fine.
Okay, so let's all right, cool. So let's I think so. One of the things, let's if you guys can sync up, if you can bring up your PR, Sandeep, and then we can kind of resolve that. But yeah, I think we're getting to where we need to wrap up a number of these issues so that because we're kind of stacking dependencies a little bit, and it gets risky. So then the plan, we have a plan for this now, Sandeep and Wim, you're gonna.
Yeah, well, Sandeep, you're in India, right? So we can chat tomorrow morning if it's okay, or where are you based?
I'm in India, yes. And I think you are 2 hours with me or something.
Yeah, 2 or 3. Yeah, so we'll resolve it tomorrow. Okay, yeah.
Great, yeah. So let's and
could you add me as well to the? I'd like to listen in to help with the other thing I have. I'm an hour behind, so we can do it. I can do an Indian time zone if it's as well.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll sort it out. Yeah. I'll set up a meeting. Yeah, let me set up a meeting. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, I mentioned this already. Simon's on vacation now, but he's got it all buttoned up, and so I've approved it, but I need Morten or Natasha to take a look at it before we merge it. So here, I think, I don't recall what this is. Piotr here. Do we need to do anything here? Or we just need to merge these.
I think we just need to merge things. In my view, I think it may have been merged. I don't know. I think at least I think I reviewed it and I think I approved that one. I don't know whether we need one more.
All right,
Let me check. I'll check.
So it's in the
packages, right?
Yeah, it's in the free 5GC packages.
Free 5GC
example packages or free 5GC?
I think we moved.
It's one will be in example packages, that's your ransom, but the rest of the things will be in free 5GC.
Okay, your ransom has definitely been merged. It's here. Okay.
Create initial version of free 5GC CP KPT package that's still open, but that's in free 5GC package.
Yeah, free 5GC. Yeah, free 5GC packages. I think I provided. I think we need one more.
It's approved. Okay, all right. Let's it's covered. I think there was some. Okay.
I think we need. I did one. We need one HTM.
I'll take a look at this right after the meeting.
Okay.
And we can merge those. Awesome. Okay. All right. And yeah, so the UI, we have a PR for this. What's the status here?
Hi, John.
Hi.
So regarding the UI, I think yesterday we had some comments from Chris. I think it was already addressed by Chandra, and we just merged it. So maybe once after his review again, I think this should be good.
Awesome. Okay. Okay, good. And then, so where do you want to go next? That's I think you did both package variant and package variant set as I remember.
Yeah, so both the viewers are done. From last we discussed, you said that the next priority would be editor for package variant set, right?
Well, yes, that's what we originally said. Now, this is something we should discuss because since we added this stretch goal of the workload cluster deployment, one of the things that is part of that is actually the use of package variants directly. And so there are potentially use cases where you're deploying a workload cluster package, which contains package variant resources, and then you might want to go in with the UI and say, edit it to point it at a different upstream instead of the kind cluster upstream pointed at the GKE cluster upstream or something like that. So I thought so the kind of that might be good to start with package variant actually, which is actually simpler than package variant set. So that might be a good place to start. Anybody else have thoughts on that based on the on those comments?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So why don't we jump in with package variant editor? I mean, if you already started on package variant editor, that's cool too. But if depending on the capacity you have to get things done, that would be a good place to start.
Yeah, that noted. We'll look into it. Yes, we'll look to see how we can align. Yeah.
Okay. Did we?
Do we have an issue? Just want to make sure. I think Yeah, we should.
Yeah, there are two issues, but it is
Okay.
not part of sprint 1. With that tag we have to add.
Okay,
Then
that's
let's do
Sorry,
that.
sprint 4. Yeah.
okay.
Milestone sprint 4. So can I mark this in progress, or or still? Are you guys you're gonna get started now, right? So we can probably,
Yes. Yes.
and then the other one, we'll just put this in the to-do list. Awesome. Okay. All right. I think this Victor, we were going to put on pause this. I'm trying to figure out what what the issue captures. This issue originally captured something I think we put on pause. Is that right, or does this still capture the overall process?
Is Victor on the call?
I don't know. I can't see both things
Yeah.
at the same time.
No, I don't. So Victor is still having a few scripts because there is still some prerequisites that you have to have, John. So you have to have kept, kind, and so on, right? And then we have to do kept live apply. So he has a wrapper around that, as far as I know. I think at the moment he's using Ansible or kept. So what he is doing still is building a wrapper on these type of things to combine them. Because first, I also built a PowerPoint where the sequence of execution, maybe I'll share it on Slack, maybe we can have a review about it, of the things that needs to happen. And so given that even if you do kept live apply, he puts that under a wrapper.
Okay. All right, we'll take a look at that. Okay. So this one was assigned
System management package.
so this is the Nephew system package with all the management cluster things, porch, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
So
has anything changed here in terms of I mean, we sort of know it's only about where the repositories are going to be and if there are any updates being done. We just need to be able to know that with whatever the installer is using or whatever if we are using Ansible, we just need to know this list of repositories and packages and apply them.
right, so this is to create the actual package for the applying to the management cluster. So there's few people assigned to it, so I wasn't sure who's taking the lead here. I mean, it kind of right now what I did is I just applied I have a pre-release build, which is
I have the same. I have a bunch of individual packages that I created myself, and that's what I'm applying right now. So I think it's a bit too early to finalize this. I think, John, if I'm honest, because I think we are individually putting the components together. I think from the moment we have a bit of base, I think then we can create. I have the feeling it's a bit too soon to do this.
Maybe this needs to happen next sprint as part of the integration, but
yeah, it's a bit, for me at the moment we have all the pieces. It will be it's like of course someone has to approve it, but it's not a lot of work.
Right, exactly. Once we have all the individual pieces, it's not a lot of work. Did you put this together, Wim, or any status here?
It's ready to. So the IPAM backend, I have a package. I did not submit it yet because I also want to see. I have a bunch of controllers. I would like to use the same mechanism that we are going to work with Sandeep on it, right, for the Nephew controller, so I can disable and enable them. I want to use the same framework, so I'm just waiting for that. But tomorrow, this will be there.
Okay. And Liam, I know you were looking at this a little bit.
Yeah, I was looking at this, but I think this is actually it could be related. Is this related as well to the previous one, the package of provision clusters and the system package for the manager? I just need to get an understanding of how it all kind of was. I've kind of been a start on it, all right, but
Okay,
I
yeah.
think
So this
we'll
is
talk.
okay. So there's a plan to
Is this-
talk tomorrow
is this-
on those. So this would be the config sync package for delivery to workload clusters.
Okay.
So I think Wim might have something already that does a lot of this, but you know, I tried to.
That's a
describe
diagram that I
it.
shared.
Yeah.
The diagram that I shared. I
the Slack
just
there,
made
yeah.
a diagram of it. So we should maybe.
Yeah,
Is that
maybe.
the topic you wanted to review, Liam?
Yeah, we can go out
quickly.
through this afterwards, and look, I don't mind putting all this together. So
Okay, so I think this Wim matches with what you are doing, right? This is what we've talked about in the past in these meetings, and but
Yes,
I don't know if you reviewed this or not, but
I did, and I created a diagram about it, which
That's
for
what the
me
diagram
visually,
shows.
yes,
Yeah.
the diagram is trying to just confirm again the same thing.
okay, yeah. Well, we're gonna need to communicate this to the rest of the world, so. It's good
Yes,
to-
yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So this is a subset of that same thing. I know you've got some pieces of this. So sort of all those pieces are
Those
coming together.
packages exist. The packages exist. I think there was one. I splitted the templates from the actual cluster config. I'm not sure where the PR is at the moment.
Yeah, we should try and get. So one of the things is, right, we need to just, if we can get these things merged, then other people can try them out. And when they're sitting in a PR, it's harder. So like, let's try to.
I've tried them. I'm using myself the package what I submitted. I try myself all the time.
Right. Yeah. Right. I know. Yeah. So I'm just saying, like, so is this? So then some of these are ready. Is this like ready to merge? Like.
So regarding that, I was discussing with Wim. Maybe we should like try to use like sub packages. So in order to try to reduce like I don't know, like I haven't tested, but I don't know if it should be better like to have like a different way to organize the packages.
To use what kind of packages? What?
Yeah,
sub packages. Sub packages.
I don't think Porch supports sub packages well. I think we'll get into trouble.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I have, that's not well, I don't think that's well tested. So I'm concerned about getting into rat's nests that we don't want to get into. Porsche sees the repository as flat, a flat collection of packages, and it might work just fine, but I just don't think it's been, I don't think it's super well developed. So I'm concerned about trying to rely on it. But what we can do is, right, we don't have to put them in this repo. Like we can have a repo that's literally just for testing and building and development, and we can just actually manage them with Porch so that they get tagged automatically if we want. So that's another option, like a scratch packages thing. And then once we decide they're ready, we push them into here. That's another possibility. But I also think we can be a little bit lax in how quickly we merge things in this, because we can just, you know, these are not, it's not code, it's there's some code, but it's, I don't know, it's more iterative, I would say. So I'm okay with merging things a little more quickly in here.
Yeah, definitely need to merge those things, because I'm depending of those packages for the test infra, one of the test infra PR that I have open.
So
Okay.
I know Vish has hands
Oh yeah,
raised.
I just saw that. Yeah.
John, I mean, can we? I mean, between us here, can we say that we can merge those example packages by the end of the day today so that Victor can make progress?
That works.
I think the one that I want to discuss, Victor, do you still need the one? Because I think you ran into an issue that I think I fixed independently because the topology was not set, or I forgot to put it in one place. So I think your PR, I'm not sure whether we need that still.
Well, I was doing the test because we were losing just one custom resource. So I can do some testing with your patch as well.
Yeah. Can you do that? Because I believe I fixed the issue that you ran into, in my view. And we don't have to, because what you did is you put the same CR in the same package, basically. So I think it's going to create some challenges going forward if we do that.
Okay.
And I think the issue that you ran into was actually something that I missed out. So there was one place where I forgot to put the topology feature flag to false, and it had to be true. And that's when you hit this problem, I think. Or at least I saw the same issue that you saw, but I fixed it that way.
Okay. Let's give a chance, Vish, to say something.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Vish.
Oh, yeah. My question was, you said about subpackages. Are there any known issues that has been logged against Porsche at this point of time? Just curious.
Not that I know of.
Okay.
I'm just
So you're not sure about what the coverage is. That
I just have one issue. I have one issue with Porsche. I think, John, we are discussing, right? So for me, any cloning doesn't work.
That I don't understand. Yeah, because I'm not having any problem with that.
Yeah. So I would love someone to try it to see what the thing is.
Yeah, I'll try it again.
Just
with
to
the latest build.
Yeah.
I think I applied that latest build on my cluster and didn't have a problem, but I'll try it again.
Yeah. So I get let's say authorization issue even with public rep. So it's very strange that I got, and I basically installed from scratch. I tried everything, and even public repos, no keys, nothing. It's still the same. I cannot clone anything.
Even with the CLI, right? With anything.
Yeah, because I said under the hood package variant uses clone, right? So I just said, okay, can I just clone?
Exactly.
Even that failed.
Right. Yeah, I'll give that a try after this call as well, and make sure that the latest build that I gave you is not broken. But I mean, the end-to-end tests. There's some end-to-end test failures due to some timeouts. There's a flake, but it has passed for but the build I gave you is a build of a PR. It's not it's a development build. So, but it shouldn't have any changes in that area. Mm-hmm. So I don't know.
So okay. Just to summarize from the Victor's request perspective, I think Victor, we will merge it by the end of the day, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
That should unblock you, I guess.
Sure. Yeah.
Example packages, right?
Yeah. That one.
Thank you.
Okay. Bootstrap controller. So this is the controller that watches for a cluster to come up and then installs the config sync package. I know you did work on this.
I have. Yeah, so maybe there is a slight change, or maybe let me explain what I did, and I have one open point that I wanted to clarify, if that's okay. So sure. At the moment, it watches, so it acts on secrets, okay? Because what you see that Cluster API does, the reason I did it on secrets, because if I make it specific to Cluster API, this Bootstrap controller is only working with Cluster API. So I didn't want to do that. Okay, so I used secrets as a mechanism because I see secrets being created, and then I can, based on the, let's say, signature of that secret, I can figure out whether it's a kubeconfig one or not. So there is a way to do that. And then I check, I see that the secret belongs to Cluster API because it has a specific type that is Cluster API specific. So based on that, I actually check whether cluster is available or not, right? And so the Bootstrap controller at the moment, what it also does So that's why I created this token repo. So at the moment I create a token. So in the repository controller is split in two pieces. So there is a something that creates repos, and there's something that creates tokens. Okay. The reason why I did the token, the reason I started to do it is because config sync and porch have a completely different approach on how they use tokens, which complicated the thing a lot. The second thing that you realize is that one of these tokens has to be put on the workload cluster and not on the management cluster, right? Yes. So I created a token controller. So there is 3 at the moment. So there is the repository, there is the token, and then there's the bootstrap, right? So the token one creates the token in the management cluster, but in the related namespace based on how you set it up, right? So that's what happens. And then the bootstrap controller installs that token on the workload cluster, right? So and also that's done through secret, so it's very generic. And then the thing that I still want to clarify, John, that's also why I made the slide, is I need to find the repos, the packages that I need to install. So I believe the repository, so we create a dedicated repository with the deployment fall. So that's one that I can use. And then will these packages, will it be a label that we set that matches the name? So that's the only thing that I haven't done. So how do I know that which packages belong to that workload cluster? So that's if I have that, then it's done. And that's like
so what I imagine. So we could do it 2 different ways. We could do, like you said, we could set a label associated with packages that if we want to allow the Bootstrap controller to install multiple packages. I thought we could get away with just one package, in which case I would just use the name and make it the same name as the cluster. And then you would install that one package, and then anything else you want to add to the workload cluster goes through the ordinary config sync process. That's what I was doing.
Yeah, correct. So so and the reason for potentially more packages is I have a feeling that it's better to split root sync from the config management package.
It could be. I mean, the config management package though should be the same across. Without that, it shouldn't vary.
Correct. Yeah.
So in that case,
that's correct. Yeah.
You could treat that as a static package that the Bootstrap controller installs on every cluster, and then you could have the one named for the, or it could even be smart enough to know how to create a root sync, right? That
I have that logic. I mean, the root sync isn't a thing, but what I was planning to do is I anyhow need to go to the package revisions, right?
Right.
So I was just going to go through the package revision, see whether it matches that repository, and then match the additional labels, and anything that's in these packages that doesn't have the annotation of the config flag to true, I just install. That was my logic. Because we will only put things in that repo that are Bootstrap stuff, that's Bootstrap related.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, I mean that works. I think any of those works. I don't have a strong opinion on any of those ways to do it. Let's just make sure we get it joined, right? So that works.
So I'm just going to look at the package revision, match the repo, and then check the labels, and then if it's 2 packages or 3 packages or 1 package, I don't care. Whatever is in there, I just install. That's the idea.
Sure, we could do that. Sure.
Yeah. Okay, I'll do that.
Awesome. Okay, and then
so I will check in tomorrow. I will check in. It's ready, basically, more or less.
Okay, yeah, I'd love to see the PR, and then we can take a look. So I have one item that's not on here. I'll have to add. So the UI we talked with these we just added. So the viewer is this, and this we just added. And then after topology, we need to hear from Stephen, who's not here. This one. I'm just waiting for that other one to merge. This is basically done, right? So once once it's dependent, the PR is dependent on merges, I might have to, I don't even think I have to make any changes to it. I just might have to rebase. And then we can get that reviewed by Morten or Natasha, and I don't think there'll be any issue. So, okay, let's then, I hope, we have one more, tomorrow's meeting, I can't make the 9 a.m. meeting. So Wim and Bala, can you guys run that one tomorrow?
Yep.
Okay,
okay.
Thank you. And then
even I may be slightly delayed to that meeting. So thanks.
What's that? Okay.
I will be there. I will be there.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll join in a few minutes, maybe first 20 minutes I may have to miss. Yeah.
Okay. And then Thursday's meeting, this meeting, hopefully we'll see a bunch of these things go to the done column. That's what I'm hoping to see. So awesome. Okay, thank you all, and we'll talk soon.
So I think
by the way, John, I had also one question. Maybe can I do very quick? I think it will be.
Yeah, I'm like I said, I have another 20 minutes, so I can stay on. I want to let anybody who's not interested in whatever we're going to talk about go. And then Liam had wanted to talk about something, but it sounds like maybe that's going to be discussed in another meeting tomorrow. So, or tomorrow your time. But I'm here, so whoever wants to stay.
No, but these are two. So my quick question is the following: if I do a package variant, can there be two separate package variants that go to the same repo in the same package?
Not the same downstream.
Okay, so not the same downstream. That's what I thought. Okay.
A package variant needs to own its downstream completely. So there's an adoption policy you can set on a package variant. So like if it finds one that has the same repo and package name as its downstream, and then the adoption policy is set to adopt, which I believe is the default, it will take it over. So if you have two of them, they might actually fight over one if they're both. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought, because in our design, we have to take care of that, I think, because we will have to deal with that somehow. Maybe I think Liam, the point that you wanted, because I think Liam had 2 points. One was the thing on the controller. I think the other thing you wanted to discuss, Liam, correct me if I'm wrong, is the drawing and how the cluster package looks like, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I wanted to just go through, if that was okay.
Can I quickly share my screen, John? Maybe maybe it's good for everybody to just have a look. So I created this drawing. You see my screen?
Yes.
So what I try to represent, so these are blueprint packages. So here I split root sync and config sync, John. So,
but those are the upstreams of the package variants in the middle.
These are the blueprints. I call them the blueprints, right?
Yeah.
So these are blueprints, and they are, oops, sorry, I screwed it up. So these are blueprints, and they are, blueprints, and they are see, they are the true upstream, right?
Yeah.
Then
so they're in
the cluster.
They can be inside or outside Nephew, but they're kind of blueprints. Yeah, fair enough.
Those would probably live in the, as we have it structured right now, those would live in the Nephew example packages repository, and they would be read-only from the point of view of this cluster.
For example, cluster Kepi kind, right? This one is an example of this. So we have, there is one, it's still a PR, but this would be one of those.
Okay. And then there could be things like, I think things like GT are out. Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
So at the moment, config sync and these are combined in the same package. I split it here, but it's my personal view is that I see this as a configuration of this.
Sure.
But and and this is something. So these are the repositories and the tokens that are needed for deploying the repos. So there is cluster, repo, and then root sync and config sync. So this config sync. So these are the three. And then we have, I think this is I call this Nephew example, right?
I would call this workload cluster.
Okay.
Or Nephew workload cluster. maybe.
Yeah, Nephew workload cluster, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's more than just
Nephew-
creating the cluster; it creates the registration.
Yeah, and this one at the moment for me only has PVs.
Yeah, and I think that's fine actually. And this is why I was saying, like, if we can get the UI editor to, like, you could actually go in and say, oh, I want to choose a different upstream for the PV cluster to provision a GKE cluster instead of a kind cluster. And that's all the edit you have to do in that version of the package. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, because this same one as this, I used to install the management cluster. So this one, when Victor's scripts run, I have the same thing I used to install the management. So to get these two repos running,
yeah,
I do exactly the same package. That's why I split it.
Perfect. Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, and then we have the PVs, and so I try to put, so these are the upstreams and these are the downstreams. So we will create two repos. One is what I call the management repo, which is deployment through. So this is the thing that config sync is going to act upon and install on the management cluster. So these are the clusters and the repo, right? And then
and that's Nephew itself that you're installing there, is it, or am I?
No, so when an operator basically says deploy one of these, or maybe that could be a PVS that sits on top of this that says I need 3 of these, right?
Okay.
It says I need cluster 1, cluster 2, cluster 3. What will happen is that so the PVS will create 3 PVs representing this, right? And then each of these 3 PVs will create under the hood 3. So these, so you get in total 3 PVs plus 4 for each one, so you get 12 PVs, I think, right?
Yeah,
or 15.
Let's do it. Let's just do it a human flow first because it's easier to understand. So if a human says, "I need a new workload cluster," what they do is they instantiate this package, Nephew workload cluster. So they do kept package clone Nephew workload cluster to cluster 001, and then they publish that package to the management repo itself. And
here,
right. And at that point, what's happened now is you've created 4 package variant records in the management cluster. And so the package variant controller says, aha, I know how to manage those, what to do with those package variants. I take the first one, which has the upstream of the cluster and the downstream of the management repo again. So right, we're using the process to write back to the management cluster over and over. And I create a cluster package for that. And similarly, I create a repo package for that individual cluster 001. And I create both of those in the management repo. The reason I create them in the management repo is because that's where my cluster actuation controller and my repo actuation controller are running. In the very early, if you go like way back to like the very early diagrams, I actually put those actuators in a different cluster called the cloud management cluster. So in theory, those don't have to be our management cluster. We're just using our management cluster as the cloud management cluster. So both Nephew and the actuators for clusters and the actuators for repos all run in the same cluster. Hopefully that doesn't make things more confusing. But the idea is, right, yeah. So, okay, Wim, you pick it up from there. I think I cut you off.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Yeah. So, yeah. And then, yeah, when cluster gets actuated, so there's a recursive, it's like John was explaining, there's a recursion here. So, and I did not draw that properly. So this gets applied first here. By the fact that this gets applied, the PVs gets also applied to the management cluster. And then the second thing comes into play. So the PVs creates these clusters, these repos, this root sync and config sync. And given that this is deployment false, right? This will not be applied to the management cluster, but given that those two are deployment true, they will get config sync puts them on, and this one is going to create a cluster like you see here. So this one will create a cluster. This one will create a repo in Gitea, right?
Okay.
And then it will create these objects here, so that are associated with this. So there is a repo in Gitea. There is a repo that we are going to put in Porch. So Porch will be connected to this workload repo. And then we also create a token for Porch so that Porch can connect. And I create a token for config sync in this management cluster. And then the Bootstrap controller picks up these secrets that are being, because if you see under the hood how Cluster API works, it creates a secret with a config, with the kube config inside. And that's how I know how to connect to this workload cluster. And then there is also a secret created in config management for the config sync to connect to this cluster. So the Bootstrap controller picks these up to understand how it can communicate to the workload cluster. And then it looks at the root sync at this repo here and basically deploys and installs config sync with the token and points to the right repo.
What is the config sync token in the management cluster on a per workload cluster basis for?
Okay, so for me, it's a way to convey. So what happened is that I had a bit of a discussion with myself on this. So I had two approaches. Approach number one was that the token controller, right, that creates it in Gitea would put it to the workload cluster, right? But then I had the logic on figuring out the kube config, figuring out all of that stuff. I had to have in two controllers. So what I ended up doing is I say the token controller does always the same. It creates a token. So I create, by the way, compared to Ansible, and I think security-wise it's not bad. So I create a dedicated token for Porch and a dedicated token for config sync, right? For each cluster. So so you will have. So I think it's secure because if there is something is compromised, so I think security better. So that's that.
It's better, yeah.
So yeah, and then what I ended up doing is I say, okay, the token controller should always do the same thing. So it creates a token and it always puts in the management cluster. Yeah. It's there as a placeholder, but it's only added in config sync namespace. So you only see it there.
You can't put it in a package because it's a token, it's a secret, it can't appear in Git.
Correct.
So you store it in the management cluster, and then the Bootstrap controller can copy it into the workload cluster.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
So secrets, like I said before, is a huge topic we should address maybe in R3. But like a lot of secrets management is done by like at least I don't know about other cloud vendors, but at Google we have this thing called Secrets Manager, I think, that, you know, rather than copying secrets from one cluster to another, it mounts a volume and backs it with a CSI driver. So basically the secrets never get written to disk anywhere. Like we want to support all of that stuff eventually, but I think that's a couple of hours down the road. So this is great.
That's how it should be done in my view, but I took with the means that we have right now, I took something simple, but you should write it into a vault or a secret store and get it from there in theory. But then we have to install all of these components. So.
Exactly, it's a huge job. Yeah.
You just the Bootstrap repo then is I guess is used to bring up the workload cluster. Yeah.
It's like a staging. So the Bootstrap controller needs to apply a customized version. So it's a little bit, actually, we might be able to get away without it, but the way we're thinking about it or doing it now is the Bootstrap repo is used as a staging area for packages that the Bootstrap controller should install on a new workload cluster. And so you create packages in there that are customized to that workload cluster, and you install them in the bootstrapping. And we don't want to put them in the management repo because then they would get applied to the management cluster. We don't want that. We we stuck them in a separate repo that's just a staging area.
And would that include the packages for the 5.3.5
No,
well,
this is
Nope.
just the config sync stuff to get things up and running.
to get up, so it's just the kind of the stuff you need to install to get things working, like config sync and whatever it is.
Otherwise, no.
Like
Go ahead,
we
John,
were
but
saying a
yeah.
minute ago, like we probably could get away without it by just installing a static config sync package and then having the Bootstrap controller actually generate a root sync resource and inject it directly into the cluster, workload cluster. But I think if this is working already, I think this is good and it's clear. You know, it's a little bit, yeah, Vish.
Just wanted to, on the management repo, the cluster file gets loaded out there, and then config sync on the Bootstrap controller looks at it. Depending on, let's say we want to get like 25 workload clusters. So there'll be like 25 instances of those cluster definition files sitting out there, I'm guessing, correct?
That's
yeah,
correct.
So that
That's
Nephew workload cluster package in the middle gets
Mhm.
instantiated once for each workload cluster.
Okay, and if somebody were to actually go off and manually delete on that deployment repository, or if there is actually a programmatic way of deleting any of those workload cluster packages, will it automatically delete the cluster as well?
So the general workflow, the PV itself has something called a deletion policy.
I see.
So if you go and delete the underlying package revision, the package variant controller will recreate it, because I mean, it'll recreate it in draft mode. We don't have an automatic approval controller right now. It's all manual approvals. We can add that later. So right now you could do damage, right? You could go in and delete that. And the actuation, you know, yeah, it might cause damage. It would get corrected by the package variant controller and rewritten. Now, if you set the deletion policy in the package variant controller tells what happens when you delete the package variant resource itself. So if I deleted the package variant resource, should I leave the existing package that we created? That's an orphan policy, or should I delete it? And so that's control. But if you delete underneath it, the resource that it's managing, it will recreate it, but it'll recreate it in draft mode just because of our lack of automatic approvals.
Okay, and also in the near term, it is still not using the cluster. Is it using the cluster APIs? The reason I'm asking this question is
yes.
Okay, cool. That means only kind clusters today, at least for what we are trying to do, it is only kind clusters.
No, we can do anything CAPI can do today.
Okay, yeah. The providers, supports all the providers out there.
But we haven't installed any other providers in the. But yes, it would be able to support all the providers. And I want to take it a step further if we can, and do non-CAPI provider. So at Google, we have something called KCC, or you could also use Crossplane, or you could use AWS controllers for Kubernetes, or whatever it is that Azure has, like as actuation controllers. And the only thing that has to change in this entire process is that top thing that says PV cluster has to point to a different upstream.
Yeah.
So the reason also, one of the things I'm thinking through in my head is like, hey, look, there's going to be people with investments out there already using solutions or distributors, distributions of OpenShift that they want to keep, and they want to be able to manage through those. I mean, if those distributions provide any of those APIs, trying to figure out, do they always have to be listed as one of the providers,
Yeah, no, if there's a KRM API to provision a cluster, we can support it by creating a package and referencing as upstream in the PV cluster.
Yeah, because Nephew, because there's going to be already brownfield deployments out there, right? When Nephew is probably going to be used in production at that point of time. Just trying to understand, like, hey, what if somebody doesn't want to actually change using the cluster API? So those were my thoughts in my head. So thank you.
Yeah.
I think that will take some time.
Yeah, I think it's weird. I think it's going to be pretty cool. I think it's going to show a ton of flexibility and a ton of ways that. And the whole point was, right, that if we make it KRM, then we don't have to care about all those details. And I have other ideas, like I want to take this a step further, where there's certain parameters that we might want to be able to control across those different providers. And this is where early on I talked about this idea of like abstracting the APIs into just the ones that we consume and not worrying about the ones for provisioning. And I think we're going to be able to demonstrate that pretty well. I'm hoping still to get that done for R1. So we're just about out of time. So do we need to cover this more, Wim, or where do we stand?
No, I think this is, I think I first wanted to show the picture because I think sometimes the picture is important, but I think I have to do this recursive thing. I have to see how we represent this better. Maybe Liam, if you have time to work on it, because we have this recursive thing here and I think we have to somehow capture that well. But I don't know, Liam, did we address your points?
Yeah, I'm a little bit clearer now, but I'll keep working through the material, and I think there's some things now in PRs that I spotted some of the PRs, but there's other PRs as well. So I'll take a look at it in the morning. So yeah, I have some time to spend on that this week. So good.
I mean, it's pretty intricate, and like we're going to need to be able to explain this. So I think that's going to be a big effort over the next couple of weeks, is figuring out how to explain this in a way. And I think having the UI, being able to actually step through it piece by piece and show, oh, when I deploy this package and I submit it, and then, oh, look at these resources appeared. Okay, what did each of these do? Oh, they created these packages. And then like you can kind of step through that process. And then you can take it the level higher where you say, rather than manually creating one of these clusters, I'm going to create a package variant set that creates 20 of them. And we're done. Yeah. Okay, I think we're out of time. Thank you all so much, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.